One evening in the fire department I used to be a member of, we got a call for a house fire, and the police were reporting that there might possibly be people trapped in the building. So myself and another firefighter responded in the ladder truck and arrived on scene several minutes before any other units did. This other firefighter had just joined the department, so this was his first real fire. So I led the way in as we began the primary search. Typically, ladder trucks don't carry water or hose, so we didn't have a hand line, a hose line, to protect us from the advancing fire. We located the fire in the rear of the building and then did a quick search of that first floor. Then we headed upstairs to the bedrooms where typically at this time of evening, victims, if there are any, would be found. As soon as we got to the second floor landing, though, it was lights out conditions. I hate to be cliche, but literally you couldn't see your hand in front of your face. So completely by feel, we did a search of the 2 bedrooms and the 1 bathroom on that second floor. And when we finally got done with it, we're finished with that search, we could hear the other units arriving. So thankfully we didn't find anybody, any victims. I wanted to let the chief know that we had done our primary search and it proved negative. Back then, the masks that we wore, the air packs that we had, when you tried to speak through them, when you were using the mask, your voice was completely muffled. You couldn't understand what anybody was saying. It was even worse when you tried to talk on the radio. It was completely unintelligible. So instead of taking the 30 seconds to a minute it would involve to get out of the building to the front yard to make my report, I decided in the middle of that lights out environment, genius that I am, where you couldn't see anything and couldn't breathe, I decided to take my mask off. And as soon as I gave my report, sure enough, I inhaled some of that superheated toxic smoke and it seized my lungs up. I couldn't breathe. But very calmly I thought, no big deal, because all I have to do now is just take my mask and put it back on my face. The only problem is this meshing that goes over the top of your head that holds the mask in place, this meshing had slipped into the inside of my mask. So when I went to go put it on, I couldn't get a seal, which means I couldn't draw any air out of the air pack. Just as all this is happening, my partner informs me that he can't find the door to the way out. Can't find the way out of the bedroom we're in to the stairs. Since I had led the way in for the search, he was closest to the way out, so he was going to lead the way out. But because it was his first fire, he got a little disoriented and couldn't find the door right away. So here I was, trapped, and I couldn't breathe. I thought to myself, great, this is how I'm going to die, not as some heroic rescue attempt, but as the idiot who decided to take his mask off in the middle of a fire so he could give a report on the radio. In the fire service, there are publications that every fire department gets. In these magazines, the articles often critique fires where firefighters have died so that other firefighters can learn and not repeat the same tragic mistakes that were made in those incidents. All I could think at that moment was how I was going to be featured in the next issue, how humiliating and embarrassed I'd be, what an idiot I'd look like. Obviously, I didn't die that night. I was able to figure out how to get a few good hits out of my air pack and then find the door and our way out. But clearly, that wasn't one of the finer moments in my fire service career. And if I had died that night, I would not have wanted to be known as the firefighter who died because he took his mask off in the middle of a lights-out environment. I wouldn't want every firefighter in the nation to be thinking of me anytime they were tempted to take their mask off in the middle of a fire. Because of that experience, I have great empathy for Jesus' disciples. When they first hear the story from the women that the tomb of Jesus has been found empty 3 days after his crucifixion, they go to the tomb and find it empty. Instead of reacting with heroic faith, they, like complete idiots, respond with total doubt. And that's how they're known throughout all perpetuity, in perpetuity, throughout all the ages. They are known as the ones who respond with doubt to the initial news of the resurrection, the finding of the empty tomb. Countless sermons have been preached, exhorting Christians not to imitate their example of doubt. Clearly, it wasn't their finest moment. And this is a powerful reason for us not to doubt the story of the empty tomb, not to doubt that it's historical. The only way that this story could be told the way it is if that's exactly how it went down. And that's a big problem for those who want to challenge the historicity of the empty tomb. However else they want to explain the historical circumstances, they're forced to explain the story itself, the way it stands in the Gospels, the way it's written in the Gospels, as a later legend, as something that was created several generations later when the living memory of those events was gone. But The problem with this is that there's no good explanation for why one of those later legend writers would portray the disciples in such a humiliating and embarrassing light. These disciples at that point were being venerated as heroes. Many of them had died as martyrs of the faith. Nobody would dare talk about them in such a disrespectful way unless that's exactly what happened, how it actually went down. If I had died in that fire, no fire service magazine would create falsehoods about the foolish move I made. They would only document what I did in that fire because that's actually what happened. No fire service magazine would ever dare treat a brother fallen firefighter so disrespectfully. In the same way, these later disciples, any Christian legend writer, would never treat those original disciples so disrespectfully. They were being venerated as heroes of the faith, and nobody would dare talk about them, portray them in such an embarrassing, humiliating light unless that's actually what happened. Still, all this proves is that 3 days after Jesus was crucified, his tomb was found empty. It doesn't prove that he actually rose from the dead. So is there anything else about the disciples' doubt that helps us understand what they actually saw when they claim that they saw him risen from the dead? Actually, remarkably, they not only doubt the story of the empty tomb when they hear it, they also doubt when he supposedly appears to them face to face, when he's standing right in front of them. They doubt it's actually him. They think it's a ghost or they're having some other kind of vision. Matthew 28 tells us that while some of them worshiped him as risen Lord, others doubted. And this tells us a whole lot about what they actually saw, which is what I'll talk about in next week's blog. So do you think the story of the empty tomb is credible? Let me know what you think by going to the Contact EJ page or the Raising Jesus website. I'd love to hear from you. Also, please keep liking our Facebook page, subscribing to the YouTube channel, and telling your friends about us. I really appreciate all the support. Thank you.